There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from feeling like you are never enough. You look at where you are, then you look at where you thought you would be by now. And somewhere in that gap, a quiet voice starts its work. Everyone else seems to have figured this out. Why haven't I? I should be further along. I've wasted so much time. That voice, that particular ache of feeling behind. Today, I want to offer you something that voice has never once told you. Welcome back. And if you're new here, I'm Heidi, and my feathered companion beside me is Jesper, the Moonstone Owl archivist of Emberhollow. We're glad you found us. The feeling of being behind is one of the most common experiences of our time, and also one of the least examined. We treat it as a fact, as a verdict, as though behind is a real place we have genuinely arrived at. But behind compared to what? To a timeline you inherited from someone else. To a version of your life that existed only in your imagination at 22. To people whose highlight reel you watch daily, whose private struggles you never see. The feeling of being behind is not a measurement. It is a comparison. And comparisons without context are almost always cruel. Here is what no one tells you. The ache of feeling behind is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you care, that you have genuine hopes for your life, that you are paying attention. The question is not how to stop feeling behind. The question is, behind on whose timeline exactly? And is that timeline even yours? We live in an age of extraordinary visibility into other people's lives, and almost zero visibility into their private struggles, their doubts, their 3 a.m. moments, their seasons of falling apart and slowly putting things back together. What we see is curated. What we feel is raw. And when we measure our raw, unedited life against someone else's curated version, we will lose that comparison every single time. This is not a new problem, but it has never been more relentless. Every scroll is an invitation to compare. Every milestone announcement is another data point your mind files under, evidence of how far behind I am. And so the exhaustion compounds. Not from doing too little. From measuring too often against the wrong things. Jordan Peterson, in his book 12 Rules for Life, offers a rule that sounds almost too simple the first time you hear it. Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. On the surface, it reads like a motivational poster. But sit with it for a moment. What Peterson is pointing to is the difference between two completely different kinds of measurement. Horizontal comparison, measuring yourself against other people, is a game with no finish line and no winner. There will always be someone further along, better resourced, born into easier circumstances, or simply further into their own journey. Vertical comparison, measuring yourself against your own past, is the only measurement that actually tells you something true. Did I do better than I did yesterday? Am I a little more honest than I was last year? Have I moved, even slowly, even imperfectly, in a direction that matters to me? That is the only comparison that belongs to you. And when you make that shift from horizontal to vertical, the question changes entirely. You stop asking, why am I so far behind everyone else? and you start asking something far more useful. Compared to who I was, am I moving? There is something else worth naming. The timeline you feel behind on. Where did it come from? Most of us are carrying timelines we never consciously chose. The idea that certain things should happen by a certain age, that by 30 or 40 or 50, a particular version of life should already be in place. Relationship, career, financial stability, a sense of having arrived somewhere. These timelines were handed to us by culture, by family, by the particular moment in history we were born into. We absorbed them before we were old enough to question them. And then life happened. Real life. With its unexpected turns, its losses, its seasons that took longer than planned, its detours that turned out to be the most important stretches of the whole journey. Your life did not go according to a script you chose. That is not evidence that you failed the script. It is evidence that you were actually living. In Emberhollow, there are meadows that bloom only in their own season. The unicorns of the silver meadows have understood something for centuries that we keep forgetting. A living thing does not bloom on a schedule. It blooms when the soil is ready. When the light arrives at the right angle. When the conditions that only it can know have quietly, invisibly fallen into place. A wildflower does not bloom late. It blooms exactly when it blooms. The unicorns do not measure the meadow against last year's meadow. They do not ask why this spring's blossoms are fewer or smaller or slower than another field's. They understand that growth is not a race, that becoming is not a competition, that the only question worth asking of any living thing, including you, is not how far along are you, but are you still moving toward the light? You are a living thing, not a project with a deadline. So what do you actually do with this? 3 things: gentle, honest, useful. The next time you feel behind, pause and ask, behind on whose timeline? Write it down if you can. Get specific. Who created this expectation? Did you choose it, or did you absorb it? Does it actually fit the shape of the life you are genuinely trying to build? Sometimes just naming the source of the timeline is enough to loosen its grip. You realize the comparison was never between you and your own best life. It was between you and someone else's idea of a life. Try Peterson's Rule 4 for 1 week. Instead of comparing where you are to where others are, compare yourself to who you were 12 months ago. Not harshly, with honest curiosity. What do you know now that you didn't know then? What have you survived? What small thing have you built or repaired or let go of? What have you learned, not from success, but from the harder seasons? Most people, when they do this honestly, find they have moved more than they realized. They just weren't measuring in the right direction. Decide, deliberately, not by default, what success actually looks like for your particular life. Not the life of someone you follow online. Not the life your parents imagined for you. Not the life that would make a good highlight reel. Your life, with your values, your constraints, your genuine hopes. When you have your own measure, the feeling of being behind loses most of its power. Because you're no longer competing in a race you never agreed to run. You are not behind. You are here, in this particular moment, with this particular history, on a path that is entirely, irreducibly yours. The people you are comparing yourself to are not running your race. They don't carry what you carry. They haven't survived what you've survived. And they cannot offer you the one thing that only your life can give: the quiet, unfolding evidence of who you are actually becoming. The feeling of being behind is a message. It is telling you that you care, that there are things you want for your life that still matter to you. That is not a problem. That is a starting point. And you are not late to it. You are here. If today's video resonated and you'd like something practical to take with you, the Complete Restart Method is a free guide. 6 steps for coming back to yourself when everything feels like too much. The link is in the description below. And if you're standing at your own square one right now, the video on your screen will give you the most thorough explanation of the restart method and how you can do it. Until then, seekers, walk gently, be kind, and remember, you are already enough. The best self you seek is already inside you.